guys, welcome back. Short intros because we're getting right into the action. Mr. JD slash Billy slash new name. How are you? You look like you could be ready to run in the midfield for a certain team in the Prem. I look like I could still support my team from the bench. Still from the bench. Still. How are you doing today?
Well, I am working from this morning, and I've been pretty much busy over the last week or so. But I am great, as you said, I'm looking in great shape. So I guess I'm getting there, where I need to be on the defensive midfielder, because a lot of teams want a six. Suriname wants a six. Jamaica wants a six. Manchester City wants a six. So you never may know. All right.
I heard there's a party somewhere in the Arsenal area that is available. I'm giving you an option. It's an
Okay, all
option.
right. I will consider it, Yeah, I will consider it. But
But like
let
you
me get to
said,
cracking. Yeah.
like you said, we are where we are, and especially when it comes to CONCACAF Nations League, we are set. We have our semifinalists set. We have them here. We have Canada, Mexico, the United States, and Panama are there after they all won their quarterfinal matchups in their two legs the last November window, which means in March, we're going to have Canada versus Mexico, which I think on paper people might look and say that is the matchup of the semifinals, and then an underrated matchup because Panama has beaten the US in their
Yes.
one of their last two matchups. So this isn't necessarily a given that the US is going to walk over them and get through, but those are your semifinal matchups. Just before we get into how the teams got there, how do you feel about this setup here? Who are you excited to see? What's your feeling look at these March matchups?
I'm excited to see Mexico versus Canada, because I think United States will beat Panama very easily. You understand? I mean, United States, they have a new confidence about them. They have a few pieces that they need to interchange. We saw Mark McKenzie. In their Tim Ream looked a little bit sluggish, so at least they know that they need to improve those things. Richards was there, but he never. He was just coming back from injury, so clearly they have even the replacements there. So it's just for them to come in and stamp their class, and which this is their competition. And I think they're going to make a statement against Panama. Pochettino's ball is rolling. The inverted fullbacks, them are killing teams. The creativity that they have, the lack of when we saw them the last time against Jamaica, when they had to bring on players in the 70th minute to try and get some creativity because they had so much of the football. Those days are done. Robinson creating for United States, Pulisic creating, Wade creating, Weston McKennie creating, Tillman creating. So everybody just creating. It just look like they're enjoying their football. So I don't think that's going to be so much of a competitive one. I think United States will win over the long haul. So Mexico and Canada, what I saw from Canada, they are sharpening up their tools. Still look a little bit weaker out on the wide areas, but you never had any Alphonso Davis. So that can be sorted out as well. You would still need backup. Especially when you're playing the higher level teams in the region. So I like what I saw, and I think the closer game will be Canada-Mexico.
I tend to agree with that. I think the Canada versus Mexico, we saw that matchup happen, and I mean, both teams maybe had one chance in each half, right? And they're friendly in October. No, it's a September friendly. Yeah, September friendly. It was Laren in the header, and then at the end, I think it was Alvarez with a shot in the end of the second half and the first half, respectively. So I think both teams kind of played cagey. That game was less football; it was more of a classic CONCACAF matchup, which I expected a bit more of the same. But it's going to be a conversation as to which team can find whatever pockets of space are available and try to create something. And I think it'll be very interesting to see. I think it's a good matchup, I think, for both sides, because if you're Mexico, you have the opportunity to kind of sit and say, no, we're still top dogs in this region. And if you're the Canada, this is your opportunity to stake a claim and say, actually, no, not just off of form. Right now, we are one of the better teams here, and we'd like to prove it to you once again. So it's a good matchup. I think the time will give us a lot, especially for Canada. Getting healthy will be key. Davies being back with the squad would be great. Cornelius off of his nick, and then getting some players in form, whether that's a Kone getting into form, whether that's a Tejan Buchanan getting minutes at Inter and getting in form. I think for Canada, Mexico, that's the matchup overall. I'm not going to sleep on Panama. I expect the U.S. to beat them, but I expect Panama to make it difficult for them. And I think if Panama can find something in the next few months from a production standpoint and just from a 9 standpoint, I think it opens their doors up a lot more. But for right now, again, that matchup, Mexico, Canada is the matchup of the semis for me. But let's talk about how we got there. Right, let's talk about how we got there. We did mention Canada, Mexico. Let's talk about Canada because no, let's talk about Mexico. Mexico did not need additional time to make it through. Good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them.
But as what I've said, when I had finished the Suriname game, because the game was actually after, I said that I think that the referees are going to be a little bit fair in this one. And I thought that in Honduras, I clearly saw why Mexico can't win there, because the officiating is fairly one-sided there. I know you complained the last time saying that, Mexico got 10 extra minutes. But I thought that the officiating was very much one-sided there, and the atmosphere was very bad towards Mexico. It's very hard to win there. Even you can ask the coach, because he ended up there not really nice at the end of the day. But people can go and research that. But it was a very, very tough time there, and maybe that really woke up something in Mexico for the next leg. I thought that they were dominant. It could have been 15-0. Two goals lead coming into this one was never really no difference, because it could have been 3 or 4. They would have scored 4 and they would have scored a 5th. It just looked like it's only one player, one team was on that pitch. And Raul Jimenez, being back, as what I told you guys, a seasoned goal scorer, I think he makes Mexico good. Very good, because Mexico was always the best chance creating team in CONCACAF overall in the last 4 years. Every single time, they never fell off. They just couldn't finish the chances then, because you have Henry Martin, Funes Mori, you had Santiago Jimenez that came on. They're all bad finishers in a Mexican shirt for reasons I don't know. Because when these guys are playing club football, they seem they can score goals. But ironic, they are getting more chances, but can't score. Who knows? So that Jimenez coming back, I think it can help when Santiago comes back from injury. It can actually help him to settle himself in the team, because he's a true goal scorer and a true 9 with experience, So I think he will help Mexico big time. So Mexico got there because they're the better team this time, and no 10 minutes and no Africans crying that Mexico shouldn't have been there. They deserve to be there.
Listen. FIFA spoiled me with my 17 minutes of additional time, okay? When they started giving that to me, I said, okay, well then give me 17. Don't promise me 2, and then give me 12. Give me 17, and then, maybe give me 18, and I'll be fine. But again, the 2 results there, Luis Palma twice for Honduras in San Pedro Sula, and then Mexico just dominant, moved pretty much the whole game. Jimenez scoring 1, Henry Martin scoring 2, and then Jorge Sanchez getting the 4th one. I was reading on it, I was thinking about like how each team approached this game, right? And this was an interesting comment. I saw this commentary where it was just, maybe Honduras shouldn't have started Palma for this game. Maybe they should have waited to bring him in the second half to kind of work their way through. And that was an interesting thought. And I can see the logic with it. The reality is I tend to agree with it, just because if you have the lead already, you don't need to chase the lead per se, especially if you know you're going to be defending. Defend, keep it close as much as possible, and then come on and then put the game away that way. Do you think Honduras just bungled this situation, or was it just a situation as Mexico was just simply the better team and they were going to win just because home cooking was always going to do the deal for them?
A bit of both, if I can say so. Because I think Mexico is the better team, but the strategy made it a little bit easier, because once the next team, the opponent, starts to get dominant in the game, the confidence starts to grow, and they just believe that, okay, even when I've missed 5 chances for 30 minutes, I am going to get 5 more before halftime. So that means I have a next 5th 15 when legs starts to go in the second half. So I thought that this because they played a 4-4-2 and used Palmer as one of the strikers, pretty much. I think they could have kept Palmer, switch his spot and use more of a 3 in midfield or 5 in midfield to just make it as compact as possible, or even a 3 in behind so you can't get the spaces for the crosses and stuff. So I do agree that they could have made it a little bit more difficult, but they would say that, okay, but that would have invited them to play in between the channels, and they have technical players because Alexis Vega is very technical in between the channels. So you knew that they would have gotten through. So this was the best way to go, because at least they would have had an opportunity to get an counter, because these are their best forward players. So you could have gotten a counter. So I could see from their standpoint to say that I have to lift something that I can get something on the opposite end rather than just stay in the game. Because I thought that Mexico would have scored regardless. And with less fear of the counterattack, they would have pressed on and put more bodies forward. So they would have gotten the goals from even earlier, Africans, because they still had to have 2 to 3 within the midfield third at all times. They would have advanced one more in that attacking third and really suffocate Honduras. So for me, I think it was just a better team, and their strategy wasn't so much to blame, but I could see where you're going with, and anyone that says, oh, they should have been a little more defensive and sacrifice one then to go forward. But I could see that. But I think regardless, Mexico would have won it.
No, I tend to think that, and even with I feel like the refs are going to be biased against Mexico thought process. I thought that Mexico, on paper, again, were more talented. This team, this Mexico side, in very different ways, they seem to mirror what the Americans were going through during Berhalter, where it was just good at home, questionable on the road, and just puzzling results sometimes. So I think for them, looking at them through that window, it's just a matter of maybe it's just between the ears for them versus just on the pitch. They have the talent, but sometimes it's just between the ears that needs to get them going. And we'll talk about them, also talk about Honduras a little bit later on, but their opponent